Are you still justifying the price of your creative services by going into long drawn out explanations about how much everything costs, how much your equipment costs, your training costs, your insurance costs, and everything else that goes into running your business? If you are, I encourage you to stop right now. Clients don't care about your costs. What they care about is value. My name is Aura McKay, and I am the founder of Business of Creativities. This is Coaching for Creatives, a weekly live Facebook broadcast on business marketing and mindset for creative service providers. Today, we're talking about pricing. This is a super common, challenging area for so many creative freelancers and solopreneurs. If you are joining me live, please type in the comment box, what is your number one recurring question that comes up for you again and again around pricing? If you're watching on the replay, drop me hashtag replay, and also tell me, what is the thing that keeps coming up again and again and again and again when you think about your pricing? What do your clients tell you about your prices? What do you get frustrated with around your prices? What gets you stuck and keeps coming you back to, what's going on? Because I suspect that I'm going to be able to clear up some of that frustration for you in today's Coaching for Creatives conversation. I'm going to share with you 3 things to think about when you're setting your prices for your creative services. And then how can you use that to justify or validate your prices when you're in a sales or marketing conversation. So the first thing is, yes, your costs matter. They matter to you. You definitely need to know your own numbers and know where profit lies. You need to understand what you're investing in being able to deliver or provide those creative services so that you have a really good understanding about what you're bringing to the party. That's where many of us stop. We just think, okay, well, how much money do I need to make for my dream lifestyle and to cover my business, and then divide by my number of clients, and then that'll give me what I need to sell or what my average price needs to be. And it's an awesome starting point. And yes, we absolutely do need to include and consider our pricing. But to use our own costs to justify the price of our services doesn't make sense, because our clients aren't interested in whether or not we brought the 27-inch iMac or whether we were more conservative with our spending and only bought the 21-inch iMac, or they don't know whether or not we are investing in a 6,000 square foot studio or a 1,000 square foot studio. That doesn't really matter to them unless it impacts their own experience of value that they're going to receive from your services. So the only time your clients care about the things that you spend money on in your business is if it impacts them and the kinds of service or value that they're going to receive. Most of the time, when we're looking at our pricing, we do need to make sure that you're pricing for profitability and growth, but that you're also pricing to be relevant or aligned with the value that your clients are receiving. And understanding our value as a creative service provider, when we sell the invisible, when we're selling a promise, this can be really challenging. And so many of us try to figure it out on our own. And it's impossible to figure out your value on your own, because you don't get to declare what your value is. Your clients get to tell you what they perceive as being valuable. So yes, you need to know what is unique about you, what is differentiating you, sort of your unique value proposition. But the actual price for value received kind of exchange that happens, your client gets to decide what is valuable to them. And so if your client is saying, God, how come this is so expensive? If you start to explain the value that they're going to be receiving, then the price starts to become much more relevant and aligned and attached to something that they care about. They care about their results. They care about their outcomes and what's going to be different in their lives. So how do you do that? You look at, well, if I'm going to do this photo shoot or this logo or write this copy, what's going to be different or valuable for my client? And what's that worth to them? What is the difference that it makes to them in their lives? So this is where we're starting to see where if one client were to go to 3 or 4 or 5 different service providers, many of them would be providing similar value, and so they should be at a relative similar price. If they're providing different value, more value, they should be at a higher price. If they're providing less value, they should be at a lower price. What happens though is that many of us as creatives, we don't really know how to price based on value. So that's definitely a place to learn if you're still struggling with how do you validate your prices, or how do you even consider how to set those prices in the first place. So number one, yes, you need to consider your own costs. Number two, you need to consider what is the value that you bring. And the more you can be articulate and talk about and be clear about the value that you bring, that's the best place to land whenever anybody is challenging your pricing or curious or having questions about your pricing. Go back to your value, go back to the difference that you make. So think about it. If you're going to just sell like a headshot for instance, and you're somebody says, okay, well, the headshot's $500, and you're like, what? $500? That doesn't make any sense to me. How can you charge that much money for just picking up your camera and taking like a single photograph? So there is a disconnect between the photographer and the client in understanding the process and the value of the deliverable. So the deliverable is one image, but what's the value in that? I'm just going to turn off my phone. But what's the value in that one image? Well, the value in that one image to that person might be connected to the quality of the image, the style of the image, the storytelling that goes behind it, the way that the photographer assists them in leveraging that image to be used in their marketing materials, the support that the photographer gives them in deciding on location and background, the coaching and experience that the photographer gives the subject so that they can feel comfortable and relaxed and get a true likeness of themselves. So there's lots of different ways to explain this is not a snapshot. This is actually a crafted image that can be leveraged to grow your business and to experience faster trust and credibility and to create stronger relationships with your clients. What's that worth to you? So if we just talk about ourselves and our own pricing, our clients are not going to care. But when we start talking about value, price then becomes more relevant to them, more aligned for them. But there's one more thing that influences how our prices are received and perceived in the marketplace. And that is the marketplace itself. And many of us have noticed that people have changed their feelings around spending, especially if you're working directly with a consumer market. A lot of the disposable income, the luxury spending has been sort of reallocated or reproportioned. Some of it has been reproportioned back to creative services providers because they're no longer traveling or spending their money on vacations. They have extra disposable income to invest in us, which is awesome. But there may be other factors in your marketplace that could influence whether or not your services are perceived as being valuable. When digital photography first came out almost 20 years ago now, yes, gang, I've been in the creative industries for 20 years. When digital photography first came out, we saw a really big drop in the perception of value of photography because it was a lot more accessible for people. And there wasn't the barrier to entry that the complicated sort of science math-based cameras had. We now had digital technology that made that barrier between DIYing and hiring a professional like almost disappear completely. So as photographers, we were in a position of how do we communicate what's different about us from the alternatives that they now have in the marketplace, from the alternatives of either doing it themselves or hiring a new photographer who is just jacked up and excited about photographing and doesn't really consider the impact of investment or money part of it. There's a whole different temperature in that marketplace that needed to be considered relative to pricing. So when you're considering your pricing, or when you're trying to validate your pricing, it's based on 3 specific things that cause your pricing to make sense, to be aligned with the expectations of your marketplace, to position you powerfully in the market so that people understand who you are as a brand just based on your price. Are you a high quality, high price, luxury style service provider? Are you a mid-price, high quality service provider? How is your price positioning you in that marketplace? So those 3 factors, gang, are the things that are going to influence how confident you feel about your pricing and how that price is received. And when you have confidence about your pricing, you have a lot more ammunition to clap back at those prospects that are saying, hey, it's too expensive, or you need to justify your prices. I never use that word clap back. I was trying it on. I don't think it's part of my lexicon. But you have stuff to respond to in terms of how you're going to respond to those kinds of objections or questions or challenges from your prospects. I'd love to know what for you was kind of an aha or a penny drop, if any of that is going to support you in adjusting your prices, answering objections, or thinking differently about your value. So please let me know by dropping a link in the comments or a comment in the comment box, and I will be sure to get back to you. I always check back to make sure that any conversation that's started, I get to be participating in. Thank you so much for joining me live. Hey Pip, nice to see you. My name is Aura McKay. I'm the founder of Business of Creativity, and this has been Coaching for Creatives Live. Thank you so much for joining me. We will see you again here at 2 p.m. Pacific next week.